Good evening to you and welcome. You're watching Interface here on SABC3. My name is Thembi Samachele. Now, Easter is upon us once again. That means that our roads are about to get even busier. Listen to these statistics. Almost 14,000 people die on South Africa's roads annually. According to the Road Management Traffic Corporation, this costs the country around 200 billion rand per year. Now, if nothing is done to curb the carnage on our roads, the crashes that we see will be the second largest cause of deaths by 2020. That's according to statistics. Now, this means that road deaths will amount to more deaths than HIV/AIDS and malaria put together. That on its own is a very scary statistic. But before we get into the discussion, let's take a look at this insert by Manqoba Nkun.
A shocking reality on South Africa's roads. About 14,000 people die on the country's roads every year. This translates into an average of 1,000 deaths per month. Despite numerous road safety campaigns, road deaths continue to spiral. The Transport Department launched its Easter Road Safety campaign in Springs last month and issued a stern warning.
The traffic officers, municipal, provincial, national, all of us are going to be all out, stopping not less than 1 million vehicles per month.
Over 1,400 people were killed in road accidents over the festive season. Ahead of the massive Easter exodus, there are renewed concerns. The Easter death toll has increased over the last 3 years. It stood at 179 in 2009. In 2010, 65 more people lost their lives. Last year, there were close to 300 fatalities.
Too much money is being spent at Christmas and Easter, and they're having too many conferences. They're spending a lot of money on pamphlets and posters, and it's making no difference at all.
A recent traffic offence survey found that more than 7,000 people were maimed each year by poor attitude and behaviour on our roads. And it all begins here on the city streets. We observed these streets in downtown Johannesburg. In less than 15 minutes, more than 20 drivers had skipped a red robot. Traffic officials say more than 90% of crashes are due to lawlessness.
Motorists are not taking road safety seriously because driver behavior is still a contributory factor to the high accident rate, which is at this point at 84%.
Experts believe that the punishment for road offenders may also be a contributing factor.
If we start taking away vehicles, if we start taking away driver's licenses, if we start confiscating loads on overloaded vehicles, then we'll have impact. People must actually feel that they have committed an offence.
But others have blamed the country's justice system for dragging its feet.
We have a case in Durban where a man is out on 2 drunk driving offences. He never went to court. They didn't arrest him after that. And then he went out again and he killed 3 people. Now, I really think the family should be entitled to sue the Department of Justice for not arresting that man.
Last year, South Africa heeded the call to join the UN Decade of Action for Road Safety. Its Million a Month vehicle campaign launched during the festive season saw over 520,000 fines being issued to over 1.5 million motorists. Soon, the country plans to introduce the Points Demerit System, or ARTO, which will bring even harsher penalties for road offenders. For Interface, I'm Manqoba Nkun in Johannesburg.
Really scary numbers indeed. Now, joining us to talk about this in our studio is the Senior Manager for the Road Traffic Management Corporation, Ashraf Ismail, and also Superintendent Edna Mamunyane, who is the spokesperson for the Johannesburg Metro Police Department, or the JMPD. And we're also joined by Petro Kruger, who is the co-founder of the Road Safety Foundation. Remember that if you'd like to participate in this discussion, you can send us your comments on our Facebook page. Welcome to all 3 of you. Thank you so much for joining us on this show. Now, let's start with the thorn amongst the roses and just ask you this. You know, Ismail, we hear this every year around Easter and around Christmas time that, you know, we need to buckle up, we need to do this. We see the campaigns, and yet the numbers just keep going up. Where is the problem in your view?
Now, Tembisa, I think you ask a very pertinent question. You know, earlier we spoke about the fact that, you know, it's unfortunate that we only seem to get platforms during festive and Easter. The stark reality in South Africa is that we lose between 35 and 40 people every day. And clearly that's a very frightening amount. It's unacceptable by any standard. What we need to be saying is that, as we build up towards festive and Easter, we need to have what we currently do with the rolling enforcement plan. And that is a coordinated approach towards road safety. It involves the 3 E's: education, enforcement, and to an extent, low-cost engineering interventions. So clearly that is the approach we need to take. We need to take one that speaks about coordination, even of course the issues around education.
But is that not the approach we are currently taking? Are we not trying to educate, trying to enforce, but it's just simply not working?
I think what we need to do is obviously appeal to the hearts and minds of the people. I think until and unless we begin to get voluntary compliance, where people behave because it's the right thing to do, not only because, as the minister always says, where does it say in the act that you only behave when you see a marked police vehicle in the vicinity? We need to move towards people doing the right thing because it's the safe thing to do.
Petra, I heard you speaking very emotionally about this on the clip, and you were saying that, we need to have harsher penalties for people that break the law. Why are we not doing it?
I think there are various aspects to it. Our laws are excellent. I mean, we've got some of the best legislation in the world. We've got solid law enforcement. We don't have enough people out there on the road actually doing visible law enforcement. And yes, there's a focus on Easter and December holidays, as Ashraf has mentioned. We need focus 365 days a year on traffic law enforcement.
But why are we not seeing people's cars being taken away from them? Why are we not seeing licenses being taken away from people?
I think we've got that attitude that we're afraid to inconvenience people. And I think that's a mindset that definitely needs to change. If we see, for instance, someone that is driving with a child standing on the front seat, as a traffic officer, you should stop that person and give them a fine or confiscate whatever you can confiscate to make it sink in to people what their responsibility is in terms of their passengers in their vehicle.
And are your traffic officers really doing that? Do they, we get this perception that all you do is hide behind bushes and pounce on us when we least expect you. But are you as strict as that, where you see a child that's not buckled in? Do you take strong action against the person?
Well, Tembisa, we actually haven't done that. We were talking earlier with Petro that, what makes me very angry most of the time, before mothers used to be people that were very possessive about their children. Now lately you see a mother sitting in the passenger seat with the child on the lap and the husband driving. And most of the time I normally pull the husband and ask, you know what, I know it's your wife and you love her very much, but she will stay your wife for life if you let them sit in the back seat and she can take care of the child in the back seat and have a child restrainer in the back. But people don't take that seriously until it's actually not a thing that law enforcement can do on its own. It's all of us if we do it together. And if each and every individual, when they get into their car, start realizing, you teach the kids something. We do, like you were saying, are we not doing enough education? We do that. We have officers that go to school, crashes, they take kids, they teach them the science and everything. But what is it that we do as individual drivers? We are very arrogant. We don't have patience. We're just angry.
I want us to pick up on that, but we have to take a short break. When we come back, I want us to look at what it is that we need to do as South Africans, both on the law enforcement side and as individuals, to curb this carnage. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Interface, and tonight we're looking at road safety. And our guests are the Senior Manager for the Road Traffic Management Corporation, Ashraf Ismail, Superintendent Edna Mamunyane, who's the spokesperson for the Johannesburg Metro Police Department, and also Petra Kruger, who is the co-founder of the Road Safety Foundation. Now, we're talking earlier about what needs to be done. Let me ask you, Ismail, that over and above what we are doing now, we hear Transport Minister Sibundebele saying now his department is in talks with the Justice Department to try and make murder charges out of anybody that knowingly, as in knowing the rules, goes out, and causes an accident that kills somebody. Is that really the way to go for us in South Africa?
Yes, certainly. I think if you look at the causal factors, for motor crashes, if you take the last festive season, out of the 19 major fatal crashes we had, 16 of them were as a result of human behavior, and of that 16, all of them were as a result of overtaking dangerously. Now clearly here you have a situation where a person knows that what they are doing is wrong, but they still continue behaving in that fashion. It results in fatalities, and clearly certain messages need to go out. A message that says an ordinary fine is not going to do the job. We need to send out a message that if you're going to take the lives of innocent people, and if you survive that crash yourself, clearly you need to be held responsible. And responsibility is not just, paying a fine, getting off with it, but actually serving time. I think unless and until people begin to take road traffic offences seriously, we will not get it right. The Road Traffic Management Corporation is already in contact with the JCPS. We are a member of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Safety Cluster, which is a interministerial intervention looking at various aspects. Various enforcement agencies sit there and work around various issues. And particularly here we're talking about the issue of speaking to the judiciary, assisting them to get our officers to act as prosecutors to make sure that we have watertight cases so that these cases can actually hold up in court.
Now we see celebrities day in and day out clocking ridiculous speeds, and we hear that they've spent the weekend and they become even more celebrated because they've been behind bars for a couple of hours. From the perspective of the JMPD in particular, what message do you think we need to be putting across that says you are actually more serious about this than hiding behind bushes and targeting celebrities?
As Ashraf has just said, maybe as we try, as well we do as a metro, we try to speak, as a city of Joburg, we try to speak to the judiciary, saying to the Justice Department, can some of these cases, let's make an example with Edna Mamunyani. She knows she's a role model to a lot of people. People look at her as something.
But she can afford the 10,000 rand. She'll pay it.
But that's what we're saying. Then let her not pay 10,000 rand. Let her get a much more serious. Even and do community. Safety, community work, and do something, and people see that at some home of the aged, he's got to do so many hours, that, he can take this seriously.
So is that something we're likely to see soon?
Oh, well, we have to negotiate anyway, unfortunately, with the Justice Department.
Ma'am, here's another quick question. Why don't we just have traffic officers visibly showing up and just policing in their own way, the Metro Police? Why don't we see them just standing there and already regulating traffic behavior just by being seen?
Oh, well, we do have operational officers, that all the vehicles that are marked that are driving around. Tembis, I'm going to ask you, I always say this to my friends, to everybody, to people that call me and ask me, why do you want to see an officer for you to do the right thing?
Why must the officer hide and then fine me so much money for doing the wrong thing?
That's where I'm coming. Why do you want to see an officer for you to do the right thing? Because when you see the officer, then you do. I'm not saying the officers should hide, but I'm saying sometimes even in the fixed cameras that we have, people know. I know where the camera is. They slow down. 3 minutes away from the camera, the person is driving like a lunatic. And because there's no officers, you must see when they see all the vehicles. Now we have vehicles on the off-ramps and on-ramps. The people come driving nicely. Past that, they do what they want. So it means you are not taking the law serious. You know your license said don't go over a barrier line. Your license says stop when the light turns amber.
Just don't do it.
But you just don't do it.
It's human behavior. It's what we do. So really, is there anything we can do about it?
I don't think we can use that as an excuse anymore. Why do we have to be 10 years behind every other developed country? It is, in Europe, socially unacceptable to drink and drive. It's socially unacceptable for you to not use your seatbelt. In South Africa, we boast about how much we can drink and still get in behind the steering wheel. That is a mindset that no law enforcer can change. That is a mindset, a decision that you take as a responsible adult who's driving around with his loved ones in his vehicle, to say that I put up my hand, I won't do that anymore.
The lady in the clip that we saw was saying, you know, if you look at the campaigns, it's pamphlets here, it's all of these silly things that really don't make an impact. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we've still got a way to go with education, and that's where post-its and pamphlets are useful. I haven't seen a lot of them around lately because the funding for road safety is not where it should be. So we need to generate political will, not only with the Department of Transport. It's a health problem. About 25% of our hospital beds are occupied by accident victims.
Which is what I wanted to bring you, Ashraf, in on, to just say, you know, just break down the 200 billion per annum as a cost to the country. You know, how do we come up with that figure?
Well, I can certainly say, Tembisa, you know, some research was done some years back, and really these are figures that are estimated by research institutions. Essentially what they're looking at is the cost of obviously damage to property, damaged insurance costs, the hospitalization cost of all the various emergency personnel at the scene, and of course in some cases because roads are blocked. I mean, just this morning we heard about the N3 closed as a result of a tanker that's closed, a tanker that's on fire. So clearly that deviation, 120 kilometer deviation, I mean the lack of production, the lack of coordinated traffic flows, etc., is all going to cost the economy. Now clearly, you know, if you look at these type of fatal crashes, they cost the country 14,000 of us that lose our lives, you know, 14,000 multiplied by X amount, giving you an amount of 200. This obviously does not take into account the cost of the salaries that people earn because of the differentiation there.
Let's look at a way forward when we come back from this break. And let me ask you this question. Why is it that with all of the campaigns that are happening in our country and have happened over the past couple of years, we are still not doing the right thing? Drop us a line on our Facebook page and let us know what your thoughts are. After the break, we continue with this discussion. Stay with us. And we continue to talk about road safety here on Interface on SABC3. Let's look at just some of the most fatal routes when it comes to South African roads. Where are the problem areas?
Well, we've identified about 39 of the most, what we call hazardous locations in the country. If you look at the N2 between East London and Umtata, and then the tail end from Umtata to Kokstad, that's a major problem area for us. The N1 from Pretoria upwards towards Modimolle, going on to Makhado, and of course onward bound to Polokwane. These are just two of a number of them that we have identified. Of course, then what we would do is to, you know, make sure that our scarce resources are deployed along those particular stretches.
What do you do on those roads that you don't do on other roads, for example?
Well, for one thing, of course, there's the quick fix. We're hoping that enforcement goes out there. Through their visible activities, we are able to bring down the mean speeds along the major arterial routes. And of course, then certain areas we need to identify which the road user types are involved. Is it pedestrians, is it passengers, or if just drivers? Clearly, then we would want to have interventions that require education, and in some local areas, look at perhaps engineering aspects as well. Okay. So in that way, we have a multidisciplinary approach.
Ma'am Edna, how much of the problem is as a result of the fact that when I go to get my license, I've got my little chicken under my wing, I wink at a certain traffic officer, give him the chicken under the table, and I've got my license. I don't even have to know how to drive for me to have my license?
At the moment, Tembisa, we are very, at Langlaagte, we do, you understand, we do have strict cameras inside to be able to try and monitor that. But at the moment, the problem is not the examiners themselves. There are people that they call themselves the touters or something like that. These people don't work. They stand in the yards. We try to make sure that security clears them and nobody must be there that is not supposed to be there. They stand there and they say to you, for you to get your license, it's quicker. You don't even need to go and get tested. I'm going to get it for you. But those licenses are fraudulent. Now we have even the handheld machines that can be able to scan the license and check it if it's a legit one or if it's a fake driver's license. Never buy a license or anybody tells you, because in and around the areas, people have opened offices and they're selling licenses.
Surely that's a criminal offence. Are we seeing more people being arrested as a result of that?
Luckily, we do have a unit that does undercover for us, and then they try to buy themselves, they do those things. So we have had a lot of people that were arrested. People buy equipments, expensive equipment, computers, they put in the offices, they make licenses, they make IDs, they make travelers' documents, everything. So to people out there, don't buy anything. How do you buy a driver's license? Yeah. It's your life, it's the life of a lot of people.
Fail it three times, you'll get it eventually.
10 times, it's okay.
You'll get it eventually. Petra, now, just as a way forward, you were saying during the break that, this we talk about every year, and it just doesn't seem to be getting through because people just decide they're not going to do what's right to do. What do you think we need to do to make sure that we at least have a dent here?
I think there's a multiple number of things that we need to do. The one thing we need is cooperation between the various departments. So Department of Transport, Department of Health, and your NGOs that are active in the community that are doing road safety work. There seems to be a bit of lack of cooperation there. But then what would be more important is each individual take responsibility for your actions out there on the road. Yeah. It's not as if you are uninformed. You know what the rules are, stick to them. It's just that simple. And it will, we estimated, and there was some research done, if everyone used their seatbelts in the vehicle, our fatality rate will come down by between 20 and 30%. It's something that takes 3 seconds and it'll save your life.
Ashraf, final thoughts from you?
Absolutely. I think we want to make an appeal. That issue of the seat belts is critical. That same research, if we can get all South Africans, both front and rear seat passengers, to be buckled up, there's an automatic 30% reduction. And going forward, we just ask that let's be patient, let's be polite, and let's be prepared. We did it during the World Cup. Surely that Ubuntu can be brought back during this period. And not just for now, but forever, every time we're on behind the wheel or as passengers in the vehicle.
But if we look at the festive season, the 2011 to 2012 festive season, we saw the numbers coming down slightly there. What was done then that we should be copying?
I think, Tembisa, what we must remember, we now have the National Rolling Enforcement Plan. So there is a small but significant 5% reduction. We need to build on that. And clearly the one area we're looking at is public passenger transport vehicles, because when those vehicles are involved in a crash, we have multiple fatalities. So clearly we want to send out a message that, vehicle fitness, driver fitness, and issues around moving violations, zero compliance.
Ma'am Edna, final word quickly from you.
All I can say is JMPD is out in full force. We have roadblocks for all the routes that are leaving the city. When Ashraf comes across you in Polokwane, you will not be coming from Joburg, because if your car is not fit, you don't have documentation as a driver, don't even think about it, because you're spending this weekend behind bars whilst I will be busy bringing in other people that are just like you to stand there. But to everybody, try and exercise patience, patience, patience. If there is no way for you to overtake, it doesn't matter how long the traffic is, just follow it.
Just a quick one. The people that you're deploying on the roads, you're not deploying them because they now stand to have mega bonuses if they fine us more. It's not about the money, is it?
It's not about the money. And don't even try and give any law enforcer, don't give them bribes, because if we catch you taking out the money, you go in with them.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much to my guests tonight. That's all we have time for. Interface will be back next week at the same time. Remember, you can email us, interface on sabc3@sabc.co.za. Good night.